I've been thinking about the latest Jake Fisher Yahoo report about potential trade targets, Zach LaVine, OG Anunoby, and then another player popped up in that report, and that was Lauri Markkanen of the Utah Jazz. Everybody knows that I still have my stock in Markkanen. I did a video on him last year, and I've been very high on him, especially as an offensive player. And in that report, a lot of people believe that with the way the Jazz season is going, that maybe they'd be more open to trading Lauri Markkanen. They're taking calls. Now, taking calls can mean a lot of things, but the article mentioned that the Oklahoma City Thunder could be a possible suitor, considering they have 5,000 draft picks. And now I've just been thinking about that move the entire weekend because I love this Oklahoma City Thunder team. It's very clear that they have their big three set with Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, Jalen Williams having a fantastic second year, and Chet Holmgren kind of just puts the cherry on top of everything as the center that can be very versatile, doing what he did against the Nuggets tonight, which was have 9 blocks, almost had a triple-double with just blocks, which was ridiculous. That was a good game, by the way. The Thunder really hung in there, and Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, even though he had a very poor first half, really came alive in the second half and, of course, had that game winner. This Oklahoma City Thunder team, I love this team. I love watching them, and this team is very good with very young talent and a big three that I think is already established. And I just think that if the Thunder just used their draft capital finally, there are definitely some contracts to trade. If the Thunder get Lauri Markkanen, I just think the Thunder solidify themselves in the tier 1 of contenders in the West along with the Denver Nuggets. I just don't see anyone beating the Nuggets as it stands coming out of the West when we get to the playoffs. But I just love this Thunder team, and I think a move like getting Lauri Markkanen to pair with Chet Holmgren, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, Jalen Williams, and Lou Dort, that's just a nasty starting five that can compete with anybody in the NBA for a lot of reasons. One, let's start with Lauri Markkanen. Of course, I did a video on him last year and I talked about his entire offensive skill set. His shooting versatility would just do so much for the Thunder. Being 6'10", being able to run off screens, being able to attack a closeout. He's a good athlete, has had some really nasty posters over the last few years, as I've mentioned before with Lauri Markkanen. He can rebound, and if his time with the Cavaliers showed anybody, it's that if you have a bunch of good defenders around Lauri Markkanen, it's possible to have a top 5 defense. And right now the Thunder have a bunch of good defenders with Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, Lou Dort, Jalen Williams is big and long. Chet Holmgren is literally just blocking everything in sight and is very versatile on that end. So Lauri Markkanen would be very insulated on the defensive end. And then on the offensive end, he would just open up everything. His movement shooting would jive really well with the Thunder's driving kick identity. And there are perfect examples of it when you put shooting around Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, Jalen Williams, and Chet Holmgren. Like when Isaiah Joe enters the starting lineup instead of Josh Giddey, who we will get to in a second because this involves moving on from Josh Giddey for a myriad of reasons, both off the court, financially long-term, and on the court. But when you put shooting around Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, Jalen Williams, and Chet Holmgren, it's just lineups that destroy teams. When Josh Giddey is off the court, the Thunder have a 124.5 offensive rating and 960 possessions, and a 107.6 defensive rating, which is the 91st percentile. Basically, if you put shooting around that big three, you are going to get good offense every time because it's drive and kick. Lou Dort shooting 39% from 3 so far this year. Jalen Williams upped his three-point percentage to 36%. Would like to see Shai Gilgeous-Alexander kind of bounce back to the early part of his career with his three-point percentage, but he takes tough shots off the dribble. Plus, he has mastered the mid-range and getting to the rim and drawing fouls. Chet Holmgren, 37% three-point shooter, and I did a video on Chet Holmgren about how him stretching the floor is basically a cheat code for this Oklahoma City offense. And adding someone like Lauri Markkanen to that quartet, when I include Lou Dort along with the big three, that offense would just be nasty. The defense would still be really good. And when you get into your rotation and deep into your bench, you could just put a bunch of versatile lineups out there because you can have Lauri play some small ball five, stretch the floor. Lauri's shooting versatility just unlocks everything. Now, what would it take for the Thunder to be able to pry Lauri Markkanen from Danny Ainge? Because Danny Ainge, historically, a tough negotiator, really likes to win the deal. If there is one team that can pry Lauri Markkanen from the Jazz, it's the Thunder. They have a bunch of first-round draft picks. They have contracts that can match Markkanen, like Davis Bertans, and they can trade guys like Vasilij Micic, who is clearly just somebody to trade for salary because he's really not getting that much playing time with the Thunder. I know they've wanted to trade Trey Mann. That was sort of reported over the summer, or they've had talks. The Thunder have the means to get Lauri Markkanen without trading away their quartet of SGA, Dort, Chet, and Jdub. You can also keep center Jalen Williams and Isaiah Joe. You can keep a good chunk of your current team without trading a bunch of players away for Markkanen because you have all of these draft picks, and I'm sure that's what it would take. And if the Thunder make this move, I think it would make them a contender because all the lineup data on the Thunder so far this year show if you put shooting around that big three, whether it be Cason Wallace, the rookie, Isaiah Joe, Wiggins, Kenrich Williams, any shooting around that big three, and with Dort shooting 39% from three this year, it's going to be an elite offense. And those lineups would also be great because those players can defend, and there's a lot of great defenders across those lineups. And the other great thing about this is that Lauri Markkanen is only making $18 million a year, and the next year is the last year of his contract. So let's say it doesn't work out, the Thunder don't have to commit anything long-term to him. The Thunder can go in so many directions. They have a war chest of assets, they have a war chest of young players, and they already have their big three set. Now, as far as Josh Giddey, in this hypothetical move, I imagine he'd go to Utah, but the Thunder should move on for a myriad of reasons. One, of course, the nasty and disgusting off-the-court allegations. One, I don't know why you would deal with that from a PR and media perspective. Two, the allegations are just damning and disgusting. Second part of it is the financial long-term commitment. I would not commit any long-term money to Josh Giddey, and I know he was a lottery pick, but when Jdub, Chet, and SGA are clearly better and are clearly the big three that fit together, which is what matters, is when your best players synergize together. Sorry, sometimes the player that you drafted before gets forced out of the equation. And Josh Giddey still can't shoot. His numbers across the board are down. Teams really don't guard him. And whenever Josh Giddey is on the court, the Thunder are only like a plus 0.5 when it comes to net rating. But off the court, whenever the Thunder can add shooting in place of Josh Giddey or two-way play, they are just so much better, and it's very clear on film too. And I know fan bases like to attach to young players, but it just is what it is. And financially, with the way the CBA works now and stuff like that, I would rather just allocate my resources long-term financially to the big three I mentioned and not Josh Giddey. The Thunder have a 114.3 offensive rating whenever Josh Giddey is on the court and a 113.8 defensive rating. But when he's off the court, it's a completely different story. So if you just take Josh Giddey out and put Lauri Markkanen in that fifth and final spot, this Thunder team would be so much better. There would be so much more room offensively, more space for SGA, Jdub, Lou Dort to attack. Chet Holmgren can drive and kick and attack and already shoot, and so can Lauri Markkanen. This offense and this team would be really nasty, and the NBA should be terrified if this trade actually happens.